Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm going to tell you something that's very interesting and at the same time, I think a little bit funny. This is something that happened to me when I was about 7 years old. I was a very active kid, always getting into things. And whenever my parents needed to punish me, I would run, I would hide, I would get under the chairs, I'd crawl under the bed. You name it, I did it. I would go anywhere to keep my parents from finding me when they wanted to punish me. I also have a younger brother who is 2.5 years younger than me. And I think when he was born, I was probably one of those toddlers who did not take very well to being replaced by this new person in the family. There was always some kind of sibling rivalry and bickering between us. We continued that for years. So as we got older, I was always kind of picking on my brother. I always picked on him, and I'd punch him, and I'd make him cry, and I would take his things away from him, and I was always getting in trouble. I was always getting punished for doing something like that. So I would try to hide so my parents couldn't find me and punish me. Sometimes my mom and dad would send me to my room for things that I had done. And I would go in my room and I would yell out the window to everybody who passed by. And I'd say, "Hey, look up here. Look who it is. I'm here. My parents put me in my room. They're punishing me for something I did." I would shout it from the rooftop. I remember one time I went into my parents' bathroom and I found my dad's razor, and I decided that I wanted to shave. So I shaved with my dad's razor, and I nicked my legs in several places. Two things. What was I doing thinking I could shave my legs at that young age? And the second, what was I thinking? How did I think that I was going to use this razor and not cut myself? My gosh, razors are sharp. Anyway, I was always getting into things. I was a very active and unruly child. I think the most exciting part, which I've been building up to for the last few minutes, was the time that I got my head stuck under the steps. This was outside. Sometimes I would go outside and play. I would take all of my mom's pots and pans, and I would find some big rocks, and I would put them into the pots and pretend that I was making a big pot roast. And then I would grab some leaves and twigs and grass, and I'd put those in the pot, and I would pretend that those were my vegetables. So anyway, sometimes I would mix this with water, and then it would turn into like this weird mush, and that would be my gravy for my pot roast. One day, I was out there playing with the rocks and my roast, And there was this one large rock that I saw, and it was just under the steps of the house. So I was trying to reach under the steps, but I had to stick my head underneath the steps. And as I'm lifting the rock, I try to pull it out from under the porch, and I realize I cannot get my head out. My head was stuck. So I'm thrashing and wiggling around like crazy. And you would think a 6-year-old's head can't be that big. How could I get out from under the steps? So I am screaming at the top of my lungs for my mother to come and help me. She hears me. She's in a panic. She comes running, and she has to call one of the neighbors to help us out. And I thought my mom would be so grateful and relieved that she wouldn't fuss at me. Anyway, finally, I got my head out, and my mom noticed all of her pots and pans had been in use, and that I had been making a roast with this. She was furious. Not only did I have a pounding headache from getting my head caught in the steps, but then I had to listen to her too. Anyway, that's probably one of the funniest and single most important memories I have growing up as a child. I was in the biggest trouble that day, and I'll never forget it. Thanks!
That was kind of funny. Was I not recording?